Communications, we also offer an amazing program, a Master's of Science in Management in Organizational Analytics. You're going to hear a lot about analytics, and our interactive media program also will give you a strong foundation of analytics and how you really can do data-driven storytelling. And that's what Elon's about at the undergraduate level as well as the graduate level. Tonight wouldn't be possible without Ms. Donna Renella. Donna Renella is an outstanding executive recruiter for our communications and sport industries. She has clients like the Pacers, some of you might have heard of that organization, and many of the top agencies that you see here tonight, and many of the corporations around the country. Ms. Renella has done work helping to place some of the top executives at those organizations. But she also has been working fiercely for the public relations industry with the Council of PR firms, particularly in the space of diversity and inclusion. And when we think about diversity and inclusion, it also means recruiting in states that they've never recruited before as a collective, and that's right here in the state of North Carolina. And Donna has heard so much about Elon University because many of your parents and things, you all are from the Northeast, and you guys keep sending your students down to this amazing campus. And we're like, yeah, we just don't want the students, we want the employers too. And so Donna said, we will make this happen. But within her commitment to diversity and inclusion, she said, let's invite others from across the state to hear about this growing industry. So I thank from the bottom of my heart, Ms. Donna Renella, executive recruiter and one of the major leaders with the Council of PR firms, for helping to coordinate and organize this panel. So to the panelists, thank you, welcome. And Ms. Donna Renella, I'll turn it over to you.
It's not the Oscars, so we actually do have a host. Before I start, I'd just like to take 2 or 3 minutes and just get an idea from you what questions you would like to ask. We're not going to answer them now, but just very quickly, just seriously stand up and ask questions you want answers to, so I can make sure that in the short time we have, I address the questions that are going to be important to you. So, just stand up and start asking, what do you want to hear about? What are the things that are important to you?
Not all at once.
Okay, does anyone want to know if anyone on the panel is hiring?
Yes.
That will be question number 1, probably.
Okay, how many of you are graduating seniors? You guys have to have questions. How many of you are juniors? And the rest are freshmen, sophomores? How many of you are who cares? No. No, but all right. So in terms of those looking for internships and positions, what are the things that are most important to you? Do you want to hear about the cultures of the companies, the directions of the companies, what we look for? What are some, yes?
What they're looking for in applicants and how you can stand out.
Okay. What else? Yes. I'm sorry.
Career advancement.
Okay.
Good question. Yep.
Yes.
I like to know the experience as being a black community.
Okay.
Yes.
How do you see the kind of PR field changing in the next 5-10 years?
We
Now
still
you
have one,
guys
so
are
that's
asking
good.
hard questions.
Yeah.
Why you enjoy working at an agency as compared to another job setting?
Yes.
Sort of similar to the 5 years question, what are some of the most prominent trends that we're seeing in the industry right now?
Okay. What about some of the things that are important to you that make you make the decision to come with us as an agency as opposed to any other companies? Yes.
The company culture.
Thank you. Yes.
Favorite campaigns that you worked on.
Excellent. That wasn't a value answer. Yes.
Your competitive advantage when compared to other public relations firms. What makes you special?
Okay, last question? Yes.
What does diversity mean to you, and how do you ensure that you bring that into your workplace?
Okay, one more because it was, yes. Yes.
Just like,
My fault. Okay, we'll come back. Okay. So first question, and I'm going to start it with people who are sitting down. Lindsay, let's start with, since you are someone who actually does work, as opposed to those of us who used to work and now are in the recruitment or the talent side. What is the favorite campaign you've worked on?
Sure. I'm going to stand up so I can actually turn around and see everybody. So I'm with Ketchum. My name's Lindsay Glosson. I'm actually an Elon grad, 2014. My favorite campaign was actually with Lenovo Legion. I don't know if any of you are video game players, but it's a PC gaming company, and I got to work with Microsoft and do an international gaming competition, essentially. And now I work on our social media team, so that campaign was really fun for me, especially from a paid amplification standpoint. I worked with influencers across the world, got to watch video game streaming, work on the targeting, the actual content creation, so it was really exciting for me, especially since it's a little bit different than, your average tech company, so, yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Talking about what we're looking for in people we're hiring, Matt?
Hey, sure. So I'm Matt from EP & Co. We're based out of Greenville with an office in New York, Greenville, South Carolina, North Carolina. What we're looking for in hires. So I run our internship program. With our internship program, we're primarily looking to help build the future of this industry. When you guys are coming, you have the new ideas, you have new technology, first to download apps, first to try out new platforms. So, we find a lot of value in bringing you guys into our organizations to help us learn things about the future consumers. As far as full-time hires, like, post-grad, post-internship, whatnot, that's a hard question because we're not always looking for people that have done internships at our office. We're looking for people who have done internships at other places, looking for industry disruptors, people that may not have had a traditional education at a university. One of the cool things at our shop that we're doing with content production, we actually have a facility at an old mill in Greenville, and we have a like a woodworking shop and a metalsmithing shop, where we can take an idea and turn it into a piece of content, almost overnight. So it's a lot of this stuff with social, you see the things come out and you're like, hey, that's cool, and you gotta get on it right then, and we can, produce it and send it off while the idea is still cool.
Great, thanks. Jordyn, how can an applicant stand out if they're applying to W2O?
Hi, I'm Jordyn from W2O Group, and I work in our Human Resources Department. I'm based in New York City, but we have offices all over. And it's funny, I actually got this question a couple of days ago, and I was stumped with that one. But I think how a candidate can stand out is just, it might not be what you have on your piece of paper. Everybody's experience is different. But it's when you get that first interview, and I'm sure a follow-up question might be, how do you get that interview? And what I say is when you email us your resume or apply online, where you can answer those questions, where you can send an email with your resume. Try to stand out in that area, because we look at resumes very quickly, as I'm sure the other HR professionals here can attest to. We're looking very quickly, so we need something that will make you stick out. So it could be, tell us something that's not on your resume. We can read, even though we might be reading it very quickly, maybe tell us something that you've done that's relevant to our company, or that's relevant to maybe you know somebody in the company, or anything like that that can just maybe set you apart that's not on your resume.
Great. Gabrielle, if you could tell us about why you work in an agency as opposed to working in any other setting, and a little bit about what you think about people who have gone from agencies to the corporate side and come back, just a little bit in general about the differences that you see.
Yeah, so my name is Gabrielle Easley. I work at Taylor Global. I would say I work at a smaller agency. I'm like 4 months into a boutique agency where we specialize in sports and entertainment. So I know there's a bunch of people that are in sports management. I would say I think working at a smaller agency, you get to touch so many different pieces of the business. I think it's a little bit more, I'm trying to find the word. I think you're just able to kind of learn about the business in a quicker pace, as opposed to in-house, you are focused on one thing. You know what your day-to-day is going to be. So people who have like a routine, I think sometimes you want to start at an agency. because you kind of learn the bread and butter of like media relations, building media lists. I'm pretty sure you guys are all doing those things. But once you go in-house, you are an expert at that and you can speak to it. But then again, sometimes kind of like myself, I've gone from 2 agencies. And from the bigger side, where I was like specifically working on FinComs, I found that I also understood finances a lot better, that obviously you're gonna ladder up and it's gonna help me down the road, even now. But also working at a smaller agency, you get to work on creative teams, you get to work with design, you get to work actually with influencers. And I activated at Super Bowl and at Draft. And I mean, when I tell you it is an experience of a lifetime, you are not getting any sleep, but it's just a unique experience. So if you like to grind, if you're just hungry, you're out there, I think agency is it. But also in-house, it's a little bit more stability and a little bit more peace of mind. But both of them, you still have to be agile, you have to be hungry, and you have to be passionate.
Okay. Karla, why does someone want to come work for your company when they're just out of school as opposed to the other people in your corporation who are 90-year-old people who used to be diplomats?
So why wouldn't you want to come work at Finsbury? So so Karla Wagner, I'm the head of HR for Finsbury. We're a strategic communications firm based in New York. So I would think that someone would want to come and join our program because we join our firm right out of college and join our Finsbury Associate Program, which is a 2-year training program which allows you to rotate through all of our practice areas so you can get a very broad understanding of what our firm does. And so you may not know our name, but you definitely know our work. So in terms of, we're in the reputation management, crisis, and litigation management business. So when Toyota faced their recall issue, they came to our firm and we took them through the entire thing, litigation and recovery. When Volkswagen had to go and plead guilty for violating emissions, they came to us and we helped them through that entire process. And so many, there's not a major newspaper in the United States that you can't pick up today and see our work, and we're above the fold. But because of the nature of our work and the confidentiality of the work, I wish I could tell you the type of clients that we work, because you'd be like, they're so dope, just because it's like, so if you really want to come and be challenged and stretched beyond your ability, you definitely want to come to our firm. You know, our folks, you know, they're sleeping at their, you know, we worked on one of the biggest bankruptcies in the history of the United States, and so that meant you're sleeping literally on the floor in the client's office. But, you know, but there's so much exposure that you get over your time with us, so you leave, if people decide to leave, our turnover is very, very low, you just continue to acquire this amazing skill set. And then you do get to work with some very senior people that are very experienced, and you only have the opportunity to learn. I just wanted to, if I could, someone said, what makes a resume stand out? The very best resume that I ever received, the cover letter was a press release. And the young lady's name just happened to be Honey. And so it was good because it said, Finsbury sweetens the deal by hiring this young lady. And then she went on in the cover letter quoting me, and I was like, oh, what did I say? And so ultimately, but we hired her because it showed creativity and she was an amazing writer. And when she said, when she looked at our LinkedIn ad and saw that there were 1,200 people that had applied, she had to figure out what she was going to do to stand out. So don't be ashamed or afraid to step out and be creative and take a risk, because in her instance, it got her a job.
Elizabeth, what do you see are going to be the growing trends in the next 5 years?
I think we've started to see some of those trends. My name is Elizabeth Romero. I'm with FleishmanHillard. FH has about 80 offices worldwide, and so I'm based in our North Carolina operation. We have offices in Raleigh and in Charlotte. In the next 5 years, I think we'll continue to see more movement into the digital analytics space. We've seen a great deal of it in just my nearly 20 years in the field, so I think that that's only going to gain momentum. So I think that Elon is doing a great job incorporating analytics into many of the communications programs that you have, so I encourage you all to really focus in those areas, and even if it's not your main concentration, take the time to kind of see how you can open your mind to take in all of that detail.
Tameka, you work for one of the 2 largest PR agencies in the world.
Yes.
I should let you know now that I used to work where Tameka works, so in case it sounds like I love the agency. I really love all the agencies. I'm biased for everything, so it's okay. It's just my nature. Can you talk about some of the departments at Weber that people may not have thought are part of a PR agency, but are vitally important to the organization?
Sure. So hi, I'm Tameka Green, Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Weber Shandwick. We're headquartered in New York City. And one of the things that I would probably say to Elizabeth's point is analytics has been a very fast-growing practice area for us. We recently purchased 2 data science organizations in the last year. One is specifically focused on analytics in the Chinese market, so the majority of the employees are from China. So that just shows you the level of attention that our organization is giving to making sure that we are driving data-driven campaigns. So analytics is a really huge area for us. Healthcare is huge, huge, huge. I know it doesn't sound very sexy and fashionable, but you know, everyone is getting older in our culture, and so healthcare is not only growing in the PR industry, but sector overall is just becoming, that's where the job outlook is for a lot of sectors of business, so that's a really growing division for us. And the other thing too that I was telling our friends earlier is that we started as a PR agency many years ago, and we have now grown into this global communications agency. So PR is still at the heart of who we are, but we're not the PR shop like we used to be. So we're getting into more of a consultant kind of space. So we're competing against Deloitte or Ernst & Young or Anderson Consulting or Accenture, KPMG. So we're competing against them, they're competing against us. And the reason why is because our clients are coming to us wanting more than just PR or social or digital. They're wanting to come to us and say, hey, we also have these other areas that we need help in. So we're having to become a lot more nimble in the way that we are looking for employees that do have those core competencies that you all are studying currently here at Elon are still very important. But we're also looking for non-traditional employees as well that may not necessarily have those core specific competencies, but do have a more broader-based business acumen. So those are probably the 3 areas I think right now that are really expanding for us that aren't in a traditional agency type of program that you all would think.
Lindsay, can you talk a little bit about your advancement within the agency with Ketchum? And I got it right this time. And how you envision yourself growing in the next 5 years with the agency?
Sure.
I didn't start when you graduated from Elon without a major in communication, but a really strong minor that you love the best.
Yes. Yeah. No. So my major was creative writing, which I actually think has been super instrumental in my career advancement. If there's one thing that I can impress upon all of you, take a grammar class, because writing will determine the way your colleagues look at you. It's so important. So sidebar, just something to think about. So in terms of my advancement, the number one thing that I learned or have been learning is trust your superiors. I didn't think that I would be in social media. I actually applied for a copywriting position and didn't get it, and got an interview with my former manager, and she told me that I would be perfect for social media. Fast forward 4 years, it is my absolute favorite thing in the world. I love my job, and it's all I want to do. So trust the people that have come before you and learn from them, but also be willing to be flexible in your timeline and how you see your career panning out. I've had to kind of readjust a lot. My company was actually acquired by Ketchum 2 years ago. So just in the timeline that I've been with my agency, a lot has changed. So be open to opportunities, chase after them, raise your hand as often as possible, make it known what you want to learn, when you want to learn it, and fight for those opportunities. I think that especially in agency settings, you have a really unique opportunity to make your voice heard. And there's no longer that prevalence of seniority kind of trumps all. Everyone really does have a voice at the table. So make sure that you're speaking up and jump on to different opportunities, because that's going to get you in front of new clients, new people within your agency network, and it'll get you onto new paths that you didn't think were possible.
Taking a little more serious turn, I'd like to talk about diversity in public relations, but I'd like to broaden the question Diversity is, in a lot of cases, men working in public relations. In all cases, it's people of color. In many, many cases, it's economic diversity. When I came into the industry, the only people getting hired were people who had prior internships in public relations, and the only people who had internships in public relations were people whose parents had gotten them summer internships. And if you didn't have connections, you just didn't have a summer internship, which means you excluded from the hiring pool. The other thing that no one asked about that we should address is salaries in public relations. Salaries in public relations are very much of a J-shaped curve. We legitimately hire where supply and demand intersect, which means starting salaries in New York City in many cases are going to be lower than they will be in Miami or Boston. Simply because when people get out of school, they want communications, they go to New York City. So the number of people applying for positions there is so great. And so many of them, elasticity, they don't care what the salary is. They're not supporting themselves. If the position's paying $28,000 or $48,000, they're going to take the position. I have tried, the PR Council has tried as hard as we can, I'm sure many people on this panel have tried as hard as they can to convince our corporations that unless we offer a better starting salary at times, we're not going to be able to hire a diverse pool of candidates, that we're really going to be restricting the group that would be available to us. But in terms of salary, our salaries really are very much a J-shaped curve. We might start out anywhere between $30,000 and $45,000. When your salary starts going up, it starts going up. In the first 8 to 10 years, you should be earning well into 6 figures. If you're not, it's not your career. So once it starts moving, it really does start moving. So in talking about diversity in the industry, what I'd like to do is look at it from a couple of different points of view. Elizabeth, you've been in the industry for a while. How have you seen the acceptance of people from diverse backgrounds change? And just a little bit, maybe even if you have any personal stories that you'd like to relate, if you don't, that's okay too.
Yeah, sure. So I started my career in South Florida, and then spent about 7 years in South Florida. I was the only Hispanic in the agency that I worked in, the only person speaking Spanish, and so that was always really interesting for me. It was a smaller boutique firm, I had a ton of experience, and I made the most out of it. What I will say about FleishmanHillard is that we're really focused on diversity, and actually our CEO is wonderful. His goal is really to make our agency the most diverse available. We're doing a lot of work in the space, from our diversity fellowship program to other programs within the office. So I think some of us have shared before this panel, every agency kind of has its own personality. And within some of the larger agencies, you'll even see very unique personalities within each local office. What we're doing at FleishmanHillard sort of globally to create this sort of consistency with diversity and inclusion is we have a diversity and inclusion leadership panel. And what we do through that is sort of establish the strategy, the structure for our program, and then each office is able to localize it to their personality. But what we have globally is our diversity and inclusion program. It's intended for students who have already received their bachelor's degrees or even master's. And I encourage any student who is interested to explore it, start exploring it in your freshman, sophomore year to kind of understand what it is that we're looking for through the program. And diversity can be many things. It's diverse thought, it's perspective, it's experiences. And so I encourage you to learn a little bit more about it, visit our website and check it out. But I think that there is a lot of great work happening in the diversity space in many agencies and many companies, and you just have to look for it.
Tameka, you started off, but you came from Time Warner, which has such a wonderful history of diversity. And then came to Weber, which again has a wonderful history, but it's a completely different
totally different.
So can you talk a little bit about the differences in how you see it working in public relations as an industry, as opposed to other industries that have, you know, a large public relations industry corporation will have 4,000 employees worldwide. Time Warner had, what, 100,000 plus?
Time Warner Cable had 55,000 employees. And so, major difference, as you can see. So Time Warner Cable, again, headquartered in New York City, had their HR division based in Charlotte, which is where I was. And to go from a large corporation like Time Warner Cable, where there is brand recognition, whether or not you liked Time Warner Cable or not, you heard of them, you knew them, you used their services, to go from that type of organization with such a large presence to an organization like Weber, even though they're very well known, it's not a common name. We're not using any cable services by Weber or anything of that nature. So that, first of all, in terms of recognition from a broader consumer perspective, is very different than working in a industry like public relations. Also, one of the other major things, as you can imagine, in doing the kind of work that I do is focusing on employees and helping them feel engaged and having those career advancement opportunities and helping them feel like they can bring their true selves to work, regardless of what they look like or where they came from. And that's really where I work and what I do. Doing that for 55,000 people is very different than doing it for 1,600 people, which my purview is over all of the employees of North America. So it's just a lot of stuff to do for a lot of people, and there were only 3 of us at Time Warner Cable, and there's 3 of us at Weber Shandwick. So I like working in a smaller company, even though it's a larger company. For me, from an employee perspective, I'm able to touch and talk to more employees because the organization is smaller, but I can also see the impact that we're doing across North America in a much more cohesive way with 1,600 people than 55,000 people. I think one of the things that is a very pleasant difference between working in, and this is not a diss on larger corporations by any means, but one of the things that I think is a very pleasant surprise and a very pleasant transition or a lesson that I've learned in transitioning from a larger corporate entity to Weber Shandwick is what it really means to be part of a team, what it really means to be in a collaborative space. When I first interviewed for my job at Weber Shandwick, I walked into these beautiful offices in New York. I was nervous. I didn't know what I was doing because I'd never worked in PR before. And the first thing I noticed was about 10 employees sitting at this large table. They had this coffee bar on the main floor of our offices, and this large table with seats. And everyone was sitting around this table, and they were talking and laughing, and they had their laptops, and they were obviously working on some type of group thing. And then I saw another table of employees over here talking, smiling, laughing, having a good time. And that's not what I saw at Time Warner Cable from time to time, or quite often actually. So collaboration and teamwork, you will hear a lot of companies talk about those things as being part of their values. But it really is who we are, and the way that we've been able to be successful is because of those 2 pillars of who we are as an organization. So the very large corporate entities and smaller organizations like Weber, there are definitely differences, but it just depends on the type of environment that you're looking for and the type of culture that you're looking for, and you can thrive in either. But if you really enjoy working in a very collaborative, team-oriented space, then I would say that PR definitely has yielded that to me in this time that I've been there.
Matt, what would you say the culture of your office is?
I don't know, it's a tough one. We want an office of people who are scrappy, gritty, and innovative. We only have about 210 people between our 2 offices, so We like to think that we are very nimble and quick to turn ideas around and produce them. But we had, at one point, we were hiring a lot of people, and a lot of people knew their teammates. And that's great if you know your teammates. That's awesome. But the idea is to increase communication around the agency. So, one of the things we started doing, we call them co-maker events, because we're EP and Co, and these are co-maker events. And what we do is we have people at the agency that, one guy's a video editor, so he was teaching a class on doing video editing. We have 2 women that are bakers, and they did a class on pasta making. And we have all these series of things, and what we're trying to do is help employees meet other employees, because that's where ideas come from. If I just sit around with my HR team, and the Verizon just sits with their Verizon team, and UPS Store is with UPS Store, there's never any cross talk and about ideas and things that work for this team and didn't work for that team. And we had a guy in creative the other day approach us, and he was like, I want to help human resources put together a strategy on retention. And we were like, that's crazy, but we'll listen to you. And he had some awesome ideas. So, I mean, as far as culture, I don't think there's any real way to define it. We're just looking for people who just want to help create innovation in the industry. Advertising is the intersection of it can intersection of lots of things, but creativity and technology, and that's what we are trying to produce or trying to cultivate at EP.
Thank you. Gabrielle, what is the one thing that you wish you knew when you were graduating from college and interviewing that you now know, that you can tell these guys and just save their lives?
Well, I'm still figuring it out. I'll tell you that. What would the older self tell my younger self? There's so many things. I would just say that the main thing is be you. Be present. And you are you for a reason. And just stay true to that. I mean, don't downplay yourself. I think PR is all about selling yourself, essentially. Selling yourself to get that job. Don't think even when you're looking at the requirements. 9 times out of 10, there's a study that we were looking into that men oftentimes will apply for a job where they're not even qualified. Whereas women will, I see you nodding your head, where women, we kind of downplay ourselves. We're a little bit timid and reserved. So just showing up, being present, and just being unapologetically you. I think that's how I have maneuvered the corporate landscape.
Jordyn, if you were going to be able to take all the people who are going to interview for entry-level positions or internships with W2O this year, and just tell them all one secret to make your life easier, to make sure they all get hired, what is the one thing you would tell them all to do?
Tell interviewers how much you want to learn, because we want to learn as much from you as you want to learn from us. So by going into interviews and telling us how much you want to learn and what you want to learn will help us want to hire you. Sorry, that's a quick one, but.
No, but that's great, thank you. Karla, one of the things that you recently did was come out with a set of benefits for the employees that just will make the company a lot more user-friendly, for lack of a better phrase. And one of the things when you're looking for a job that everyone tells you is don't talk about the benefits, don't ask about them. But things like home-life balance are important. Where the company stands on social issues, does it stand anywhere? What type of companies does it represent? How does it do things? Sometimes it's kind of important. So, Karla, can you talk a little bit about the new benefit package that you put together?
Sure, yeah, happy to. Yeah, so we had done an employee engagement survey last summer, and there were a few focus areas that came out of that, and one of them was work-life balance. I had alluded earlier that, we work a lot. If you go on Glassdoor, you'll see that, and we do, we work a lot. So we really wanted to figure out how we could be more accommodating in terms of making sure that the demands of our employees meet our commitment to client service. So we came up with a program called Me Time, which includes unlimited vacation time, work from home days, and we're really proud of 6 months of paid parental leave for moms and dads, because everybody deserves an opportunity to bond with their children. And then when the parent comes back to work, they have a year where they can work 1 day a week from home just to kind of ease back into the transition. We have a couple programs, one called Work Anywhere Week. So the week of July 4th and the week between Christmas and New Year, you can work anywhere in the world as long as you have internet connectivity. Just as a way, again, so if you can do it from the beach or from Bali or wherever you can do it, just do it. So, because with our clients, again, when there's a crisis, it's not, crisis are not, contained to 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So it's not uncommon for something to jump off over the weekend, and responsiveness is part of our DNA. So we just, as long as you're available and ready to do that, we were happy to do that. I think, and it really sets the standard in terms of our industry, and we were happy to be one of those standard bearers.
Lindsay, we know that this is where you went to college, but suppose you go back to your old high school and you want everyone there to think that you are just the most incredible person to ever come out of it.
It's going to be a tough one.
Okay, what is the one coolest story that you can tell them about something that you did at work that it's going to make them all say, whoa, you did that?
Okay. Well, I kind of already said it with my favorite campaign. But yeah, so I guess working in social media, a lot of times I get asked, or jokes are made, do you just go on Twitter all day? No, I don't. I do have Facebook open all the time. But I would say that the fact that I am now working a field that has become an integral part of every company's business plan is really cool. Helping my clients navigate new worlds, essentially, especially in a field that changes every day. I mean, we all know every time we update our phone, there's something new in the app, and it's my job to help my clients figure out why that's important for them. So I guess the coolest thing for me is the fact that I'm now getting paid to work in a field that 10 years ago I wasn't allowed to have. Like, my parents didn't let me have a Facebook. So, and now I'm making my living off of it. So I think that's pretty cool, especially when you're thinking about pursuing a career in communications. Don't forget about social media. Like, that's a huge portion of what we do. And we do work cross-functionally with the creative team, the client service team, the analytics team. Like, it all works hand in hand. So don't forget about little people.
That's great, thank you. Let's see, Gabrielle, tell the group a little bit about, you were talking about going to draft day.
Yeah. So draft, since it's coming up, we work a lot with the NFL, and obviously NFL is year-round, whether it's like the combine, whether it is actually regular season, postseason, you name it. So going into draft, I think the biggest thing that we worked on was with Tide. This was in 2016 when it was in Chicago. I think it was 2016. Yeah, they're moving it. And we worked with some of the rookie players. And so it was really cool with Tide. Obviously, it's all about kind of the savoring the color for the jerseys and stuff. So as soon as they got announced, I promise you, I got no sleep. I was just kind of like, what is going on? But here's the thing. So as they were coming out, basically, we got their jerseys. And so we got the first photo op moment of them actually holding their jersey, had everything, and then pushing it out on social media. And it was a really cool...
Who am I? Who was that person? What was it, the award show where the girl was all pictures?
Oh, yes. I know who you're talking about. But yeah, so that was one of the really cool things that we did. But I think working with the NFL, especially being a female, I think it speaks volumes. I think a lot of times people don't really even realize that for the NFL, the demographic is 45% of those viewers are females. So being able to speak to that and actually push out authentic content, actually connecting with female fans and growing that, I think it's amazing. So if you're interested in the NFL, we should talk later.
Jordyn, what kind of training do you give to your employees to make sure that they keep current and that they're able to advance with their careers?
So we actually have, when you're entry level, the first title that you have is account associate. So we have an account associate program essentially, and it is, you go through different trainings with different departments. It could be maybe someone a little bit senior than you, it could be the head of that department, from different departments as you kind of go through your first year as an account associate. And that's an example of what we do for junior employees. And then as you kind of get more mid-level to more senior, it's just, it's going to different, we have different trainings for employees. It could be lunch and learns with the analytics department for our PR marketing account people. It could be, we have somebody in our social media department where she does a training about like the Kim Kardashian ads and how that all came to be and things like that. And people need to go to that every couple of months. So we have different things to keep everybody up to date on what they are doing. But to kind of advance to the next level is, you of course have to go to these trainings, but also in order to advance, you have to be already acting like that next level. If you want to become an account manager after an account associate, I'm just talking PR just for simple terms, but there's of course equivalent in other departments. You're already going to be acting like that. You're already going to be performing those job duties in order to move to the next level.
Elizabeth, if you were interviewing every single person in this room and you were looking for the one defining characteristic, what would be the one characteristic that would be most important to you?
Sure. So I think interviews are interesting because no matter what, you're going to get nervous in an interview. We're all human. But I would say I'm going to answer this by talking a little bit about that interview that kind of blows me away. And it's got one that I enjoy the conversation with. Maybe it was intended to be a half-an-hour call and it turns into like a 45-minute just discussion and conversation about, you know, experiences. So the ability to have a conversation, try to let your guard down a little bit. Talk about your experiences, talk about your passion, allow all of that to come through. Be yourself, which we've talked about. So, you know, try and practice those skills. I'm sure that there are a number of services and opportunities within the college to practice interviewing and understanding that process and what it's like. So try and prepare yourself, but also try to not be so nervous and just have a conversation.
Thank you. Tameka, some of the other amazing departments at Weber, strategy, planning, some of the creative groups, the media training.
Yes, so we have, we also have a crisis communications practice area as well. Strategy and planning is also a huge piece for us. Media planning, we also have a technology practice. We have a content creation practice, which is like a business called Media Co, which is exclusively content creation. We have an executive equity and visibility practice, which basically helps senior leaders and CEO with coaching, things of that nature. You know, corporate communications, finance communications. We also have, I already mentioned analytics, and of course consumer, which is our hugest practice area that we have, especially in New York City. We have around 80, 90 employees in our consumer practice, and some of our brands are Bud Light, Stella Artois, things of that nature, the Postal Service, things of that nature. So we have, I would say, probably 20 plus practice areas, and all of them are in our New York offices, but a lot of them are also scattered in our other 13 larger offices in North America as well. We also have 87 offices around the world in 127 cities across the globe, so we're pretty much everywhere, which I think is a great also attribute to Weber Shandwick, that if you're really interested in learning another skill set, you don't necessarily have to leave the organization. You can go to all of the other practice areas if you show an interest. So I think that's one of the great things that makes Weber a great place to stay and grow.
Okay. Any questions for the last few minutes? Yes.
So you guys were talking a lot about like where in the nation kind of the careers are developing because people are already in entry-level positions. So what is your take on like North Carolina or the areas around there? Do you think that there's a lot of potential businesses down here as well. I know you were talking about New York and how salaries are lower there potentially and things like that. So what is your take on this area?
Matt, you're down here. How many competitors would you, what's the local market like?
So, you know, in the southeast, you're looking like in, you know, Atlanta. And, forgive me, I'm not as familiar with North Carolina, but like your Atlanta, like BBDO, Tom Group in Knoxville or Nashville. I always get the two confused. EP&Co in Greenville. And there's, you know, those are the big agencies, but there's a lot of small agencies. People come to us and they're, you know, they say, what do I do? And it's like, you're a graphic designer. That's probably what you're going to be doing for the first couple of years. But they're, you know, I would tell anyone here to explore small shops. There are some great ones where you get to wear multiple hats, work, you know, a graphic designer hand in hand with a creative director. You know, you'll get that experience at our agency, you know, some of the time, but in some of these smaller shops, they're not to be ignored because the work that they're doing is fantastic. There's, you know, 3 or 4 others in Greenville that I know of. I have friends that work at those places, you know, alumni from our agency, but it's kind of like, I don't know, sometimes you go to a big shop and you want to go to a small shop, and you go client side. There's just, I mean, there's endless opportunities. You just have to look for them.
Lindsay, what was the shop when you started? The shop that was then reflagged as part of Ketchum. How large an organization was that?
Yeah, so I was actually just about to say that in terms of why I chose, because I'm in the Raleigh office. And one of the great things about Raleigh is the cost of living is obviously fantastic, especially when you're comparing it to the Northeast. My former office was Capstrat. We were acquired 2 years ago by Ketchum, and the reason we were acquired was because of our digital capabilities and because Ketchum wanted to have a stronghold in North Carolina. So they chose us, and we represent part of Ketchum South, which is Atlanta, Dallas, and Raleigh. So when you're looking for opportunities, I mean, of course, you've got a great network from Elon. My manager was an Elon grad. When I started, there were 5 Elon grads at my company, just in Raleigh, and there are plenty more in DC, in New York, and across the nation and internationally. So tap those networks, but remember what's in your own backyard. I mean, Raleigh and Charlotte are 2 amazing markets. You do have plenty of competitors. Perfect example, fellow Omnicom over here. Omnicom is our parent agency, but Elizabeth and I actually share an office space, not directly in the same room, but same floor. And so there are a lot of agencies. That is a very popular thing right now, especially with communications growing. But Raleigh and Charlotte are 2 fantastic opportunities, especially to learn and grow and explore other agencies and kind of get your feel for in-house versus agency life.
Other questions, please?
If I could just say something on that note. So W2O Group has an office in Wilmington, North Carolina, but nothing, we have a couple of people that work remotely in Charlotte. But something that happens at W2O Group often is people maybe start out in New York, start out in Boston, but kind of in the back of their minds, that's not where they want to stay long term. Maybe they want to go to Elon, North Carolina, or somewhere where we don't have an office, is my point that I'm getting at. And people sometimes after 6 months to a year, they'll kind of come to HR, go to their manager, and they'll be like, I love working in New York, I feel like I've worked really hard, would it be okay if I went home and worked remotely? As long as you're working hard and kicking butt, we will pretty much check that off and say absolutely no problem, you can go work out of your house. And sometimes if you get other people to go with you, we could potentially open up a WeWork. We could, maybe it's a small space right now, but it could grow. A perfect example is Atlanta. We have this one woman that's been working down there by herself for years. She's now with 5 other people in Atlanta. We opened up a WeWork a few months ago. So to kind of go off of your point a little bit, maybe come to New York for a year, or go to Boston for a year, Wilmington for a year, whatever. And if you're doing well, there's nothing that will stop you from going back home. That's where you kind of want to end up.
Now, the other city that we didn't talk about was Austin,
Yeah.
where your headquarters, which is becoming an amazing hub. But in terms of density of population within PR agencies, you're talking New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and then behind that, Boston, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Miami, and the numbers, if you look at a pie-shaped diagram, you're talking about probably 70% of it are in the top 4 cities, and the rest of it is splendid. So, other questions? Yes?
Hi, what has been some of your experiences as being Black women within the industry?
Karla, you've been in the industry, what, for about 4 years now?
Yes.
And you basically worked for tough industry, yeah, it's really fun. There are different types of agencies.
Yeah.
There are soft agencies that are consumer focused, and they're younger and they're hipper, and it's like any brand. They will have people who work for them who are similar to the products that they rep. Karla has worked for hardcore B2B, business to business, or companies that do crisis. That people who work for the companies she's worked for, the executives come to work in suits. It's a different marketplace. So you've been in a harder place.
So it's tough. I'll answer that. If we're just keeping it, it's hard, right? And so I am the only, I'm the only person of color in North America at my level. There's another woman in London, but she's from Brooklyn originally. She's from London, and so it's difficult. But that was one of the reasons that I chose to come to Finsbury. So I had, over the course of my 9 interviews, every single person spoke to me about diversity, and I thought at least that demonstrated a willingness to change, right? Because it's a very homogenous organization. And so as I lead talent, one thing that we have done is we've stopped talking about cultural fit, because cultural fit just continues the organization to be the same, because you're always, oh, well, you fit into what we have. And that's not what we want. We want to change that. So the concept that we've introduced is cultural add. What are you bringing to the party? So are you smart? Can you write? Do you have an insatiable appetite for current events? Or do you have initiative or whatever? So, but then what's the flavor that you bring, right? So then we're looking for culture. What can you do that's going to say, A, I can do the job, but I'm also going to help take this culture and advance the culture to this aspirational culture that we want to have. But to your original question, being Black in this industry, particularly where I am, is very difficult because it's not diverse. And there's age-old attitudes that you come up against every single day. I have to check it every single day when I get off the elevator. Is it me or is it my color, right? Regardless of how nuanced the people are that you work with, neuroscience says they see race first, right? So I have to check that every single day. When I started, our women's group said, oh, we wanted you to come and talk to us about, because we know you fought for women's rights. And I said, I'm happy to come, but my struggle's been a little different. And so for me, it's about opportunity. So how can we make sure, some of the things that kind of hashtag first world problems, they wanted, we want paid parental leave. Well, I want my folks to be able to have a job, right? So how do you do that? And I said, I'm happy to come talk, if you want. So we did, but it was a different kind of talk to what they wanted. But too, it goes to the firm saying, we want to be better. We know where we're deficient, and we're asking for your help to help us get there. And I'm willing to work with that all day, right? So it's a challenge every day, but it is something that I know internally I'm making a difference, and will continue to fight the good fight. So if anybody wants to come and fight with me, come on. Yeah.
And the thing that you need to remember, it's not just this industry. My favorite niece is an attorney. She works as a barrister with Lloyd's Syndicate 4 times a year. And no one gets to work as a barrister with Lloyd's Syndicate. But when she goes to do depositions in the States, half the time they ask her if she's the court stenographer. And she posted in Facebook about 2 weeks ago that if one person asked her if she was the court stenographer, that she was going to take her Ferragamo briefcase and smash it against their face. And all of her friends from law school, chimed in with it. It doesn't matter what you do. It's as Karla said, people will look at you and the first thing they're going to see is the stereotype of what they expect, as opposed to who you are. And it doesn't matter if you're gay or if you're from the Bronx, or if you're a Black female or Hispanic. It doesn't matter who or what you are. They're going to see you as different. So the question is going to be, how do you deal with it? And then if you can't have a mentor within inside your company, to find a mentor from outside of your company so that you can know someone. Sometimes just someone who you can call up and just say, I'm going to kill somebody, or just to say, are they freaking kidding me? or someone who can tell you, you don't need to put up with that. This is what you can do. But you're absolutely right. Yeah.
I have a question. I appreciate your honesty and your frankness. And I think there is something about, okay, how am I going to deal with people treating me differently? But how do you work with the people you work with to prepare them to deal with the difference? Because it shouldn't always be me trying to work with them.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important to be authentic, as you mentioned earlier, which is something that I definitely didn't really understand what that meant until, and maybe it's an age thing, or you just get to a point where you don't care what people think about you. I don't know. But I didn't really know what that meant until I was much older and became more comfortable and confident with my ability to do the work, that I was able to be who I am. And the more that you're able to show who you are makes it a little bit easier for others to see what the potential is that you can bring to the table. But there are a lot of tough conversations that are had with senior leaders that I've had in helping them understand the importance of diversity and inclusion at the organization. And a lot of it is sometimes spending time giving them refreshers on what diversity is and what inclusion is and why it's good for the business, what's the business case around it. But oftentimes it really goes to making emotional connections and really making it a personal experience, a relevant experience to them, to get them in a place where they can understand. But when you talk about talent and the ability for the organization to remain sustainable, the ears kind of perk up a little bit because, or not a little bit, a lot, because they understand that they're not only competing against other agencies anymore, they're competing against the Amazons and the Googles and the Apples and all of these other organizations. It's not just PR agencies against PR agencies. Everyone is talent. Everyone in this room is someone that we all want to work for us potentially. And so when you have those conversations around helping them remain relevant in a very competitive marketplace, and that organizations have to recruit talent in a different way, to think about what talent is in a different way, they pay attention. And so those are conversations that happen on a very frequent basis.
Before we close, please, if anyone has any questions, I'm really good at getting back to emails. It's DRENELLA@DonnaRenella.com. So it's first initial, last name @DonnaRenella.com. Subject line was in the audience at Elon, or you bored us at Elon, or this answer from Elon, or anything like that. If I don't answer you in a week, send the email again. A lot of things, I'm not rude. And I'm really serious about that. Ask me a question and I'll be more than glad to answer it.
So I'd like us all to join together and thank our panelists for coming out tonight.